Nebulas of Self-Desecration is the debut full-length album from UTTERTOMB, a Santiago, Chile-based death metal band who we could qualify with death doom metal, as well as what I would consider atmospheric death metal, and not exactly cavern core, but built from an early 2010s emergence of sound that they've really kept with where they started in terms of wanting to generate considerable atmosphere, as well as doing what bands like Crypts do in terms of taking that era of sound and bending rhythms to their will, making an almost psychedelic death metal experience out of it by just tearing through riffs and their general rhythmic play in a way that is both atmospheric in experience, but also just something a bit different than usual. And that shouldn't be that hard to describe. There are plenty of bands who do it pretty well. I think what this band does is comparable, somewhere in between Grave Miasma and their earlier sound, where there was a little bit more directness of the riffs, and a band like Wrath Prayer, who were almost like it was almost like war metal, but from a cavern core sense of place. The production values on this record are much more clear than that would suggest, and the riffs are much more defined in that sense. So there's a bit of classicism that would come from maybe an early Crypts release, but then there's the diabolic immolation-esque sense of torsion of rhythms that comes with this record. They describe it as necrotic death metal, and maybe you'd call it abyssal death metal. If you like a band like Cruciamentum, you understand what's great about this band too. So there's a lot of easy appeal there, but we'll cut to a song here to get maybe a more clear sense of where this band is coming from in terms of their sound design, and maybe hear a couple of riffs to see what they're all about in terms of rhythm. So when I first approached this record, I thought maybe this is kind of an atmospheric blackened death metal record, because I'd previewed one of the songs and I heard elements of what I recognized as maybe a little bit of an Eternus influence. There's almost like an early, not necessarily black doom metal sound, but something that you would hear on an early Samael record on Apostolic Funerals. And I thought, so maybe they're just leaning into some of their black metal influences for the sake of atmosphere. But these movements began to make more sense as I listened to the full length of the album and kind of got into it, and that these are more doom metal influences that they've translated into their sound that are more prominent this time around. While they, especially in the first half of the record, as they're setting up the dramatism of it all, and as the record progresses, they actually lean a little bit more brutal. They actually lean into more mid-paced and faster songs that drone a little bit less. As it progresses, there's a transformation that kind of happens that helps to further define UTTERTOMB away from some of the aforementioned bands, reach for something that is more distinctly theirs, and they change it up quite a bit in the compositions to the point where no two songs feel like they're bleeding into each other too much. So if you're maybe more of a fan of classic traditional death metal era death doom, there's some of that here, but I would say that maybe the early 2010s atmospheric death metal sensation should be a point that will be more intoxicating for you as you listen to this record, because it does lean into that sound design a little bit, but more so the style and these types of riffs that are still interruptive and aggressive, but go somewhere with it in that voluminous space that they're filling. For me, this is just a fantastic record. This is exactly what I'm always looking for in terms of death metal and death doom adjacent releases. I think this is done at probably one of the highest standards of April in terms of just extreme metal in general, and having this very stylized, well-constructed record just completely hit front to back. I think that every song has its place. I think every moment counts. I think the lyrics are fantastic. The artwork is fantastic. All of it points to a record that will have some strong lasting value and should be pretty exciting to approach here in a year where we're not getting a ton of records that fully check all the boxes and set the bar as high as possible. So this was above average for me and just well worth a very high recommendation. Go ahead and read more about what I have to say on the written review on the site, and check out the album. It releases tomorrow, April 19th.